And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey folks, today we're taking a look at a game called Allegiance, Realm Divided. This is a game in which players are going to take two characters. Perhaps you have Principus Beldingkind, the Paladin, or Rootclaw, the Deep Forest Druid, or the Mad King Janus. And you're going to take these and you're going to town, fighting the other person, using other units, putting units in front of you that you summon, and then they attack each other. Now this sounds a little bit like Magic the Gathering, but it's not quite. The characters are very differentiated, and, well, there's more. Let's go into some more details. In Allegiance, each person is going to take one of the different characters that's included with the game. Now, these characters are very different. There might be some special rules on them. They start with different amounts of health. They have different starting cards, and they have different special abilities. They are extremely different. There's even a book with backstories on each of these different people. So let's take a look here, for example, at, I'm going to say Alina Bellamy here. Now, she's a ranger, so I'm going to get some starting cards with her. I get some Warguide armor, so this is a card that you start with in play. I have the Hunter's Recursive Bow or the Elmwood Longbow, and so I'm going to pick which of these I'd like to start with in play. And then she has some special cards that come with her, Wolf Companion, and some trap cards that may be used. Again, each person has a very different setup here. Each player is also going to get a board here where they're going to have their health. So for example, the Ranger's health here is 34, so I would start with it on 34. And also, she's going to start with a production and with gold. Each turn of the game, you're going to get your production. So she starts here with 5 production. So every turn of the game, at the beginning of your turn, your production goes up by 1. Then you get that much gold. So if I didn't spend any gold on my next turn, my production would go up by 1. And then I'd get more gold, putting this at 13. Gold is the main resource of the game. It's what allows you to play cards. Your goal is to knock your opponent's health down to 0. If you do that, you win, or you can play a multiplayer game. So players are going to be doing that with actions that they can take on their turn. Essentially on your turn, you can take as many actions as you want, but most actions cost gold. One of the actions you can take is you can add a special ability to your thing. So everyone's going to start with one special ability, which is equip armor and a weapon. And so you can see that she has her armor and weapon. I can equip those right away. Every time you use a special ability, it goes here, and each turn it's going to knock down 1, so you can use it again. So if I'm using the Hunter's Recurve Bow, that's going to stay in play. If I want to switch it to the Elmwood Longbow, I'm going to have to wait till this comes down to the bottom. And most of the characters have different weapons that they can use. But I want these other cards. I might want to bring out the Wolf Companion. To do this, I'm going to have to pay 5 gold. If I pay that 5 gold, then this comes into play. I can use it instantly, and it lets me summon a Wolf Companion into play. And I already have this special card ready to go. Once I summon that again, I have to wait for 3 turns before I can summon it again. Once you have one of the level 1s, you can do the other level 1, or you can go up to a level 2. Or you can go up to a level, once you have a level 2, you can go up to level 3, and eventually level 4. But you can see that the prices go up tremendously. For example, her most powerful thing is an Arrow Storm. You can select up to 3 target units and or heroes and do 6 damage to each. That's pretty powerful. Why this guy here you can put an augment counter on each unit control, then put the Age as a strength card into play with whenever a unit enters your territory, put a counter on it. Units can attack the turn they enter your territory. At the end of your turn, refresh all units you control. This guy can like really pump up, and the level 4 abilities are extremely powerful. Now, players are going to be using not their own deck, they're going to be using some common decks. You have basic units, you have elite units, and then you have action cards. And players are going to start with some cards, and they'll be able to draw a card each turn. So basic units are essentially, you're going to draw them because you want cheap units that can come into play. Each unit has a certain cost. You can see these basic units are, 3, 4, 5, or 6. They have a certain amount of attack that they do, and they have health on them. And sometimes they have special abilities on them, but for the most part, they're basic units. Elite units are way better than basic units, but you have to be careful how many of these you draw because they have a much higher cost, although they usually have better special abilities. And there's all sorts of these. And again, these aren't tied to any character. And then actions are just cards that you can play that will do different things. So you play the card from your hand, look at the top 3 cards of the action deck, you can play one of those cards for 4 less gold than its cost. Sometimes there's 2 different actions, and this one can heal 3 damage from a target unit or hero, or move the cooldown counter, one of these, 1 space closer to ready. So you have all different cards. These are basically spells and different things you can do, and these are units you're going to put into play. Using these is usually a free action, but to get them out the first time is what's going to cost you that. Sometimes you can use one on someone else's turn. Those are marked in yellow. That's a reaction, and cards will say that too. Obviously, the goal of the game is to take the health down of the other player, so you're going to be using units to do that. You can declare that units are going to attack, which exhausts them, this game's word for tap. And when you do that, each player, these are going to do that much damage to your opponent player, but they can block each person that you attack with one person from themselves, one of their heroes. So for example, if they have the weaponsmith, that person could block my blood cultist, and he would do 1 damage to the blood cultist, but she would do 2 damage to the weaponsmith, and eventually they're going to die. But they also have other special abilities and things that can come into play. So you're going to be attacking, and the game comes with 2 sets of dice. It has red dice that keep track of hit points on characters, and blue is these augment counters, which you heard about earlier, which when you add them to characters will increase both their attack and their health. So if she has a 6 augment character on her, she's going to be pretty powerful. And that's really the game. You're going to just go back and forth on each turn, making your gold production go up, getting gold, drawing a card, and then doing as many actions as you can, and moving your cooldown counters that you have down 1. And you just go back and forth and do that until one person knocks the other person down to 0 health. Well, I really did enjoy this game. Now, there is some tendency for me to like these games in general. But one of the things I really enjoyed about this game was just how different each of these characters are. I mean, I have not played every single one, but I played most of them, and I'm really impressed. I'm like, ooh, how's this guy going to work? Okay, this guy here is about healing people and having armies to attack. Oh, this person here can turn into a panther or a wolf or a bear. That's my favorite, I think. The one guy who can like switch between different forms. But I really like how the game kind of has this building up point. Because you start off and you have these low attack spells, but they're getting better and better. And by the time you pull out your level 4, somebody's going to win this game. Because those level 4 things are extremely powerful. So let's say, for the example, the druid here. He's the guy who can turn into different things. On level 4, he can change into a bear. And he can do 4 damage to the target hero and to all the creatures that they control. And the bear is pretty powerful too. Because when you have a weapon or when you are a bear or whatever, you can also have your hero attack your opponent, which is a pretty neat thing. And so you just hit all those guys, knock down those common units, and then everyone charges in. Now, when your people are tapped, or I'm going to say tapped a lot, I think, but exhausted, they can't defend when people come in. So it's a bit like Magic the Gathering. What this feels like is someone played Magic the Gathering and saw the Planeswalkers in Magic the Gathering and said, wow, these things are pretty cool. How can we up the ante? And that's what these feel like. These feel like really cool, really glorified, neat Planeswalkers. And I don't mind it. I love how differentiated they are. I love the fact that the game comes with this very big deck here of special cards. And most of these cards, there's zombies for the necromancer. There's bestial allies. They're for that druid I was just showing you. There's militia recruits. These are for one of the knights. But then players are also using these basic units, and sometimes you're sitting there saying, I got to draw a card. Do I want a unit, or do I want to have an action card? Which an action card could change a whole battle. So it's pretty cool. And then there's that whole money resource. Now let's compare it to other games of this same type and explain why it's getting the ranking that it is at this point in time. I enjoy this game considerably. But I think I might like it a little bit better than Magic the Gathering at times, although this obviously isn't going to have the depth of Magic the Gathering. But I don't like it as much as another game that came out earlier this year called Codex. Codex is easily one of my favorite games. But I think this one is still a pretty solid game. Now, I compare it to these other games, not because I don't think that you should look at games individually. You should, but you got to look at things in a whole concept. I can go buy 2 decks of Magic the Gathering. Would I play that over this one? No, I think I would rather play Allegiance over Magic the Gathering because I think there's more strategy and depth and they feel very different. In Magic the Gathering, of course, I feel different because I build a different deck. But in this game, we're using the same deck and it's the characters and things are different. However, there is a high level of randomness in this game that comes down to card draw. Sometimes you're just going to draw the card you need and your opponent does not. You're drawing from the same deck, and so that matters. Now, I don't know that that's necessarily what wins the game. You got to make strategic decisions, but that luck of card draw is what actually makes it lower for me than, say, Codex, where Codex has some card drawing in it, but you also build your decks, and I think that one's a better, faster, streamlined game. This one is still good. I like the artwork. I really like the backstories. I do not like the dice being used as counters. I was excited when I opened up, like, look at all these dice! Like, dice are used to keep track of health and augmenting counters. Yay! Not in areas cool. I'd rather just use counters for those, but you can. I mean, there's a lot of cool dice in this game, though. So overall, very high rating from me here. It just had the unfortunate nature of coming out the same year as Codex, which was a better game. But I think that we're starting to see Magic the Gathering is going to appeal to people who want that living, breathing game, right? More and more cards are always coming into the system. But I want something where I feel like there's a backstory to my character and I have a character that's totally unique. Yes, I know Magic the Gathering, you built your deck, but here I have my totally unique character that's also leveling up as the game goes by. So there's some good concepts. The cover is not doing this game any favors. You see this cover, you might pass it by. But don't. If you like games like Magic the Gathering and Codex and things like that, this is certainly one to check out. If you don't, I don't know that this is going to offer you enough differentiation from those games. And in fact, I bet some people are going to play and go, rip off a Magic the Gathering. And yes, it certainly has a lot of roots in there. But I think these full-blown characters are where the difference is, especially considering how different they are. And the gameplay plays fast. It has a feeling of kind of I get all my units out and fight, and you can't. One thing I do like, this game doesn't have these 4-punch combos where it's like, you're dead. What just happened? That doesn't happen here. It's a build up, big battles, game's over. And that's kind of the way I wish Magic the Gathering was most of the time. So anyhow, that is Allegiance. Dice Tower Judgment, excellent.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.
Shut the door.